And welcome in to the Bobby Carpenter Show right here on the Big Play Network. And man, Schlegs, we have been grinding. We have been waiting. We have been just slogging through this season of 2023. You wait all summer for it to get here. It gets here. And now all of a sudden, you're staring at the final week of the regular season. So excited to talk about this with Michigan coming up. As soon as the game went 000 on Saturday night, it was to Michigan week. And there's so much pomp and circumstance that goes around it. There is all the different things that just the tapestry of excitement and the history surrounding the game. There's so much that we've got to get into with that. First, though, we do have to do a little recap on the Minnesota game, a little debrief. Buckeyes take down the Gophers 37-3 in a game that it wasn't really that close, but it didn't really feel like it was a blowout maybe until the second half. But you never really worried, Schlegs, about Minnesota really catching up or potentially taking the lead. Offensively, they looked fairly inept most of the night as they were being blanketed by a great Buckeyes defense.
Yeah, so, I mean, in that game, great to see, we had Burke and Proctor and Tommy was still out, but Steele and, Cody Simon, I thought did a really nice job for Tommy being out. Again, it's about getting him back for Michigan. But there was a lot of really good things that we saw in that. It was great to see Emeka getting utilized in the offense. Yeah. And again, as we go through, and it wasn't necessarily like he was a feature guy, but there's a lot of things that we can do with him. And Trevion, obviously, I mean, they had Emeka on the end around with a little push pass like you and I discussed. That was fantastic. They even did it with Trevion. Right, they're lining up in a bunch of different formations with the same personnel, running a lot of things. There was a great play on there where they had Cade and Emeka both as a wing.
Yep.
And they pulled Emeka. You're just like, what the Sam Dickens? Because listen, there's more. That was the first time we've ever seen that package, but there's more to that package. I'm just letting everybody know.
Ooh.
But what it was is, Cade was able to get the edge. Emeka just allows wherever that guy wants to go, he's just going to take him. The guy happened to go, I believe it was inside. So he just kind of blocked him inside. But Trevion, being in depth, was able to see that, get outside, had a huge run. You had the Marvin touchdown, which was, again, 3-by-1. You knew he was getting the ball. And you're like, well, he was singled up, and then they motioned they reloaded the front, went to 3-by-1. And they were kind of, I wouldn't say bracketing, but they were just playing a high safety over top of him for most of the time, which you should against that guy because he's the best football player in the country. But then what do? They ran kind of like an inside route with Cade. They ran a corner route with Emeka, and the slant right behind it was wide open. Again, now that you have all the weapons back, you just got to keep feeding them, and that's what they did in that game. And it was super fun to watch, especially Cade getting the touchdown there at the end, capping off his senior year. I believe only the third tight end in Ohio State history to go over 1,000 yards. Pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, it was awesome. And, getting to be out there on senior day was an electric environment. I know you mentioned Tommy not playing. He was absolutely furious that he was not permitted to play in the game. And sometimes you got to protect guys from themselves. There was no need for Tommy Eichenberg to play in that game. Cody Simon and Steele Chambers did a terrific job. They've been playing good football. You want to have your full complement of weapons as you head into this Michigan game. And that's why Tommy came back. That's why these guys all came back to players to ultimately win this game. The senior Schlegs, they don't have a pair of goal pants.
Nope.
3 years ago, they didn't play the game. They've lost the last two. And so this was a big piece of it. Those guys filled in, did a great job. I thought Jack Sawyer played really well, stuffed the stat sheet, did a good job. It was nice to see some of the young running backs get in there too. We got to see Dallin Hayden again. And then Evan Pryor, who has had some injuries, battled some stuff, super highly recruited guy. And he was able to get in there and have some get some stuff going on. But you mentioned Emeka. I think that's going to be critical because they're going to be trying their darndest this week to slow down Marvin. And to get Mech going again and to see him have the impact on the game the way that he did, that really warmed my heart because this guy's been battling back from injury. He seems now fully integrated to the offense. And that was really what I wanted to see. Coming into this game, what were we looking for, Schlegs? Well, we wanted to see the defense continue to be suffocating. You wanted to see the offense continue to develop and evolve. And yeah, were they perfect? No. Could Kyle played a little better in some spots? Sure. I thought he looked pretty good, though. You saw some more creativity in the offense. And then most importantly, you wanted to come away healthy. Yep. And after, spending some Sunday at the Woody, I feel good about where this team is. health-wise. Tommy's good. There was nothing else that popped up. All these guys understand that, hey, no one's 100% at this point. But you know what? You made it through 11 games. It's like the best part about being 11-0, well, that's a chance to go 12-0.
Yeah, and I would say this too, like in that game, one thing that, it's senior day, I believe it was 20-0 at halftime. I forget what the score at halftime was.
Oh, no, it wasn't 20. I think it was only 13.
Okay, so then you come out and you score 2 touchdowns in 55
yards.
seconds, right?
Yeah.
So boom, first play, 75 yards. Then the next series, right? Strip sack, fumble recovery, JTT takes it down there. Hancock's like, hey, pitch it to me. I'm going to score. JTT like, no, you go get a block for me because I'm going to score. But then side nugget, he goes in and gets himself a pick when he's playing curl flat. Great read by him, right? So you see all this, everybody kind of coming together. And to your point, Bob, and we'll talk about this in the Michigan one, is coming away healthy going into the game. We saw this last year, and we'll dive into it more. You didn't have Jackson Smith and Jigba. You didn't have Trevion Henderson going to that game. And now in this Michigan game, both their tackles were kind of, suspect injured. I don't know if they're going to be back. Whatever the case may be, their top wide receiver. Like, there's a lot of things, man. It's a game of attrition. And at the end of the year, you got to make sure that you have all of your dogs ready to go for this game. And the good thing is the Buckeyes got
Buddy the dog. Will he be ready to hunt?
No, he's not. He's a mythical creature at Lake Tawakoni. That's a whole different story, everybody.
At Lake Wallenpaupack, or was
no,
it
man.
Where are we going here? I mean, I wasn't sure all the stuff going there, but yeah, the mythical creature of Buddy. But you want all your dogs, like you said, Schlegs, ready to go. And I didn't want to see that game be pushed into the fourth quarter. Like, it's 13, nothing. You're kind of, like you said, plodding around a little bit, and then shot out of a cannon to start the second half at Trey. And then, like you said, then the stomp was on. Hey, you know what? Get to the bench, guys. Get some of the young dudes in there. Like I mentioned, Dallin Hayden, Evan Pryor. You're going to see Gabe Powers, CJ Hicks. Throw some of the young dudes. Caden Curry, Kenyatta Jackson. Those guys split a sack. But get the young dudes in and let them play. They've worked really hard all season. You wanted to see them have a chance to do it, and they did. And I don't think it could be setting up really any better for Ohio State. It's all right in front of them. They're going to have the opportunity of a lifetime come this Saturday at noon for the big noon kick on Fox. So got a huge show lined up for today. We're going to take a look ahead. Obviously, this week's game in Ann Arbor. We'll look back at Michigan because Schlegs, they were in a battle with all they could handle. So we're going to preview that, take a look at that. We'll talk a little bit about the sign stealing, the cheating scandal, some of our favorite stories from this time in the rivalry. And as always, we get our questions from our listeners. We got some good ones this week, so make sure you stay locked in for that as we go through. So we're going to take a quick commercial break here. There's so much more. So we're going to take a look at Michigan's close call with Maryland. So stay right here on the Bobby Carpenter Show on the Big Play Network. All right, welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show right here on the Big Play Network. And it is rivalry week. It is the week of the game. And Ohio State took care of business against Minnesota at home on their senior day. Michigan had to go out to Maryland in a game that was a lot closer, I think, than people realized or thought it would be. Michigan downs Maryland 31-24. But it was a game that was close. There was a little bit of back and forth nature to this. J.J. McCarthy didn't play all that well. Schlegs, he had 141 yards through the air on 12 for 23 passing, no touchdowns, threw a pick. So as I looked at that, I was like, man, it's not all that great. Michigan wasn't fantastic on third down on either side of the ball. And it seems like maybe they've got some issues brewing a little bit.
Well, I mean, the way that game started, I was like, what? So I mean, this is how it started, right? You go 3 and out, you hold them to a field goal, holding Maryland to a field goal. Then they had a long drive, I believe, touchdown run, Corum. Then they had a sack, fumble, scoop and score. Then they blocked the punt for a safety. Then they had a rushing touchdown. I'm like, this thing is over, man. And then all of a sudden, Maryland found a groove. And to your point with McCarthy, and we kind of saw this in 5 games against defenses that are ranked in the top 50. He had one game where it was okay, but a lot of those, I mean, he was 12 of 23. I mean, that's less than 50%. I mean, if I do the math, 12 and 24, there's 23. Actually, it's a little bit better than 50%. So that being said,
it's okay.
A little bit over 50. It's okay. I wasn't a math major, but that being said, it automatically goes to make him and the wide receivers beat you. I mean, that's a matchup that we kind of know that, right? And for them rushing the football in this game, 45 attempts for 150, 3 touchdowns, 3.3 average. Yeah, they got 3 touchdowns, but the average wasn't there. That's what you kind of want to see, especially when you're Ohio State. It's like, man, their Corum's going to get his, right? Because he's a really good running back. Like, that's just going to happen. However, the big ones that we saw on 22, we got to eliminate those.
Well,
but Maryland being able to hold them to 3.3 for the game, and again, they want to own time of possession. That's a big deal, Bob.
And that's the thing, as you mentioned this, Corum's going to get his. Like they're going to run the football, and we'll get into some numbers, as we start previewing the game next week of what has happened the last couple of years. But they rushed it 45, 48 times, but only for 150 yards. Like you mentioned the 3.3, like they weren't overly effective on the ground. They bludgeoned them, but they didn't have these big home runs that they've had in the past. So that's been an issue that they've been dealing with. And then they also gave almost 250 yards up in the air to Alea Tagovailoa. And like Maryland's got a pretty good passing attack, but I would say that Ohio State's is significantly better as long as they're able to protect. So if the pressure doesn't get there, I think there is some vulnerabilities in that secondary that they're going to have to deal with. And so as we recap, the week, Michigan has played their 2 closest games all season long, and that's been since Harbaugh's been suspended and the news of everything else happening. Now, one of them was Penn State, obviously, but I don't think anyone thought this Maryland game would be as close ultimately as it was. And so as we try to figure out how much the sign stealing and all that plays into account, keep in mind that they fired their linebacker coach, Chris Partridge, for allegedly like trying to destroy evidence. I guess he was talking to players about potentially trying to have them deceive what was happening with the relationship with Connor Stallions and maybe what they knew and who knew what about different things. Find out about Michigan booster Uncle T, Schlegs.
Oh,
yeah.
I had Uncle T. I had Uncle T, man, Uncle Tim, man, but he was a tattooed correctional officer, RIP Uncle T from Newton, Iowa. Different guy.
Well, we might not know. It could have been the same guy, Schlegs. I mean, maybe he was resurrected back to life because that's who apparently was sponsoring a lot of the stuff with Connor Stallions, because he was only making $55,000 a year. There was no invoices for any of his reimbursement. You start looking at how expensive some of that stuff was, and like, man, where's all that money coming from? So follow the dollars. Do you, after the last couple of games, think that what Michigan was doing was significantly impacting their performance now on the field?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I do think it's kind of ironic that they had the big M's up there trying to cover, what they were doing in the huddle. I thought that was hysterical that they try to play that, always playing the victim, which is just crazy talk. Here's the thing. In this game, the reason it was close, even though Tagovailoa threw 2 picks, they were 4 of 13 on third down.
Yeah.
They're normally really, really good on third down, but how is that? It's because you did a really good job on first and second down by stopping the run for 3.3 yards an average. Like that, again, I as a player, Bob, you as a player, us as coaches, regardless of what transpired before, does it help? Does it not help? I don't really know. I do know this. There's a lot of things that are going on that will continue to evolve and come out after the season. But again, somebody said that he got fired because he gave up 15 points to Penn State. I'm like, first off, terrible take. They're the number 1 defense in the country, and you can say because of sign stealing, whatever. I don't know. I don't care. I'm not in the room, but I'll say this: you don't fire a linebacker coach, one of your top 9, in the middle of the season if it wasn't for something else. And then you had another assistant coach that absolutely shut down his Twitter account. You don't see that happening.
Nope.
Right in the midst of recruiting. Like there's a lot of things that are transpiring behind the scenes that just don't happen, and they don't add up, but they do add up because there were things that were going on that were wrong.
But they do add up. Maybe not tomorrow, Schlegs, but maybe tomorrow. All of it's starting to swirl here. And I guess, Jesse Minter is the DC. I believe they brought in his dad, Rick, to be the linebackers coach. He was a longtime coach at Cincinnati. He actually was coached at Marshall when my brother was there, played for him, coached for the Ravens for a while. A very, very talented coach, older dude, had a lot of success, recruited me. But we'll have to see. Like you said, you don't make in-season moves when you're ranked in the top 5 in the country and you're having success and you're doing all these things great. Like that doesn't make any sense at all, especially because it's not like there's someone that you can just promote. Like in the NFL, you got guys you can just slide in. That doesn't work that way. with everything going on. So like you said, Michigan trying to play the victim here, with the sheets and everything else that they're
That
putting
was
out.
funny.
So a lot of
That was
nonsense.
comical. Yep.
Oh, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. So we'll get into that because up next, we're going to preview this game
Okay.
this year, what it takes to ultimately win it. What are some of the things that have happened the last 2 years that has prevented Ohio State from doing such? So stick around. Schlegs and I, we're going to break all that down for you and give you the little nuggets that you need, the side nuggets, the front nuggets, all the nuggets are there for you to figure out how the Bucs can get it done this week on the Bobby Carpenter Show right here on the Big Play Network. Welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show, and we're talking about the only thing to talk about this week. That is the Ohio State and Michigan game. That team up north, Schlegs. It will be a 2 versus 3 matchup, most likely, when the new with the new CFP rankings coming out. Looking at where this game ranks, both teams are 11-0. They're both undefeated. You obviously had 1 versus 2 back in 2006. They called that the game of the century. That is the only game that I know of in recent memory that was not played at noon. That was a 3:30 kick. But there's obviously a lot of stuff swirling around. And before we kind of dive into some of the things with this game, what's this week like for the players? I know Sunday night I stopped over at the Woody and I saw the Script Ohio as they do the marching with the band. Like that kind of kicks off the week. There's so many different things. We used to have Earl Bruce come in and talk to us about what the game meant. Because he was a player, he was an assistant coach, he was a head coach. But just, take me back because you're not an Ohio guy. You get here in 2003, you're a red shirt, you're practicing on, the practice squad for the defense, scout team, all that. What was this week like for you and your indoctrination into the game?
I mean, I grew up watching the game. I mean, I remember my first taste of Ohio State football was Andy Katzenmoyer. I mean, he was the USA, defensive player of the year. Just watching him play, the late 90s, right, when we were in high school, Bob. I mean, it was that kind of what got me into Ohio State football. Then you get here and you're on this week and you march with the band and you have senior tackle and you have Earl Bruce, which was one of yours and mine favorite memories of all time because we're sitting in the front row and we know what's coming and he's spitting all over us and he's looking at you, but you do it way better than I. So I want you to
let me tell you something, buddy.
Yes,
you think you can just march into Ann Arbor and get a win? Oh no, sir. It will be the toughest, fiercest, cleanest game you'll ever play. And if you win this game, you can walk down High Street with your chest in the air. But if not, you've got to walk the back alleys.
Good. You do it the best. That's what it is. And you have senior tackle, I believe, this week.
They pushed that back, just given, that was something that was a little bit of a point of contention. I think some people were upset about it. I kind of talked to some people when they made that move. Just like we used to finish this game before Thanksgiving. And so the week was a normal week. And now you have the week after Thanksgiving, plus the Big Ten championship should you win. And so it's like you're trying to jam that in around Thanksgiving and make sure people can get out and see their family. Like give senior tackle its own time. You do it in between the last game and the bowl game. And that makes it a little bit better. I think it can kind of
actually
reserve its special spot then. And it doesn't feel rushed. Like you're just trying to get through it the day before, day of Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I'll say this too. And this is something Ryan Day mentioned. He said, what did he say, man? I wrote it down. He said the team did a great job staying focused this week. And that was against Minnesota. And again, hats off to the coaches, especially when you come out at halftime. And like you said, Bob, 13-0, and then you just rattle off 24 points and 2 touchdowns in 55 seconds. Like that's focus. That's locked in on accomplishing the mission and also doing it for your seniors and your teammates, like taking them out on a high note there. That's really is what's going to be critical now because it's played after Thanksgiving. And just to your point, you have the marching band, you have all the stuff surrounding Michigan, you have Thanksgiving. So you're going to go in there, you're going to practice and you're going to get out, you're going to be with your family. There's a lot of other things taking your time, energy, and effort away from really focusing on the game, but you do need that, right? Like you need to be able to, work the game. As we say, when you're in the building, you're freaking working the game. When it's time to relax, then you go freaking relax. Right. But you also got to control that mind. And then boom, next thing you know, you're going up there on Friday, you're playing on Saturday, you're going to work the game there. And then you're going to drink the championship water and poof, David Copperfield. You're in the big house, man, ready to go. Right as they say, it's time for war. That's playing throughout the entire building. That's another thing too that I thought Urban did a really nice job of. I mean, as soon as you walk in the building, right, the following day, everything is like, I mean, Michigan jerseys on the ground, right? It's just the practice ones. The helmet's already taped up for the practice squad guys because it's Michigan week. It's in the weight room, like it's everywhere. Like what you got to do to win the game is throughout the building. It's that time.
It's time for war, Schlegs. You know it. LL Cool J, they pound that thing throughout the entirety of it. You know, and it's been something that's been going on for a long time. You know, the even years are at Ohio State, the odd years are up in Ann Arbor. And you know, we go up in 2005 and got a win. And that to me was one of my most memorable games there. And I only played one snap in the game. I break my ankle. But winning there, we have Eddie George back, Schlegs, who is our honorary captain. You know, it's one of the a guy who, like you said, Sandy Casimore, like Eddie George, Galloway, Vrabel, like all these dudes who you get to be friends with now, but you like idolize when you were growing up. So Eddie comes back, gives this big speech, and Eddie, I mean, he's like, I never won up here. Like, this is something. He was so pumped. It's like against Texas, I had a bottle of Crown Royal that I put in my bag, and I thought we'd drink it after we beat Texas in 2005. Well, we never won that game, so I carried that bottle with me and lugged that heavy thing around the rest of the year. Never took a sip of it until we won that game. We go up that long tunnel, march up there. We get the Gatorade cups, start pouring it out inside the locker room. You see Eddie over in the corner. I look over, I'm like, man, like, you want to get in on this? Like, you could see, but he didn't want to like intrude. We're like, yeah, man, like, this is Eddie George, Heisman Trophy winner. And so it's probably one of the greatest memories, winning that game. James goes in, plays well, and then all of us being together, taking a shot of Crown with Eddie in the Michigan locker room up there. Just a surreal experience. And I tweeted out for the questions for the show on Sunday, you know, and I've searched them, like, give me a good Michigan Ohio State gif. And they've got the one of Troy and they're passing it to Gonzo. And like, watching that thing happen was almost surreal with what Troy was able to do to catch the Gonzo, just being down 11 points or 12 points or something with like 7.5 minutes to go. It had no business coming back in that game. And we're able to do it. And that's the stuff that you look at with this game. Those are the memories that you have for your life from it. And so the story is always the same for Ohio State, Michigan. You got to win on the ground. And, you know, we talked about this before the Notre Dame game. Like, I don't know what that looks like. Is it a total yardage thing, Schlegs? Is it yards per carry, you know, whatever, yards per attempt? Like, when you watch the game, you know who won the rushing battle. Yeah. You know who controlled the line of scrimmage. In the last 2 years, there's two numbers for you, Schlegs. 2021, 297, 2022, 250. And that's what you gave up on the ground. Yeah, and not great. Defensively on third down, Michigan, they were able to convert 5 of 8 in 21, 7 of 16 in 2022. They had short conversions. Ohio State couldn't match them in either time. So if you can win on the ground, you win third down, and you have to get touchdowns when you're in the red zone. If you do those things, that is how you win this game, by execution and toughness. Oh, and by the way, winning the turnover margin wouldn't hurt either.
No, it's a celebration, man. Rick James style. First off, my favorite story as well, Bob. Just without the Coke, we had Crown. And I just remember when you did break your ankle, and I mean, we're out there together, right? It's just like, man, this is terrible. James stepped up. We went to you. You had your freaking crutches over there. We're like, we got you. We sat down. You're talking to us throughout the game, and then we're able to celebrate. And that's what you do. And you're spot on. And this, people forget, last year we were up at halftime, which actually makes me go back and think, like, okay, did the sign stealing really help in that last one? Because there was 5 huge explosive plays, I think over 70 yards in that last game. I'm not going to go there, but I would say this. The number one thing that you got to do, and you mentioned it, the running game, and so you already hit it. I'm not going to hit it. But it's really, with everything that's transpiring right now, outside of what it is to play the game, it's the calm before the storm. It's controlled chaos, right? You have to be able to control your mind, and they got to renew it on a daily basis. It's like, listen, man, you just can't, like, especially when you get there, you can't blow your load too early. And I say that in all due respect. You take it how you want it, but like, that's the thing, because here's a lot of stuff going down. It's game day. There's the pregame. There's the tunnel. It's the in game, right? How do you do that, man? It's
tunnel fight, Schlegs. I forgot about that.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you know, those type of things, right? losing guys in the game because of fights or whatever, right? Like, no. You just got to be locked in. And well, how do you do that, man? Great communication in the fundamentals, man. Just staying locked in. Boom. Like, link arms, right? Shield up. Like, it's just us, right? And it's not what they're doing or everything else out there. It's just us. It's the Buckeyes. It's the Buckeyes of 2023. And that's how you got to do it, man. You can't let the emotion of the feeling dictate how you're going to play, because there are going to be highs and lows. They got great players over there, man.
They do.
It's a fact. And it is the game. So there's going to be highs and lows. And that was the one thing about Trist that I absolutely loved. He was always freaking like this. And that resonated with us. We're never out of the game. Just go out there and freaking execute. And in 2020, in 2005, that's what they were able to do. So, and in those games, Bob, in 04 and 05, I mean, they had, like, they were winning that game, but rushing wise, like in 2 years, they only had 79 yards of freaking total rushing. Yeah. Right. We physically abused them, but they were able to do some other things in it to put us in that situation. So, I would just say this in this game. Here's the number one thing that I got. You already mentioned the running game, man. Hey, keep feeding the machine. That is plural machines. Trevion, Marvin, Emeka, and Cade, freaking machines. 75 points in 2 weeks, man. As far as, like, if you're looking at this, where Ohio State is going and where Michigan is going, I feel really good right now about the way we're going, because why? We got our cats healthy, man. Feed the cats. Those are your cats. Keep feeding them, right? And then if you look at this too, it's going to come down to the quarterback play. Who do you trust more? Right now, based off these last 2 weeks, I'm trusting Kyle. Why? He's got better dudes to distribute the ball to. That's how I look at it. I think defensively, it's 1v1, man. I mean, like, this is everything that you live for right now as a freaking linebacker. They're going to run the football. That's your entire job. And honestly, I'm super juiced up. I can't wait to watch this go down.
No, it's going to be great. It's going to be a great one. I like the Buckeyes probably 24 or maybe 21-16, somewhere there, holding some field goals. I think that could be the difference ultimately in this game. And you mentioned Kyle. The experience that he has from that Notre Dame game, I think, is invaluable and will come back to obviously reap dividends with this in this game, going into a hostile environment and coming away with a win. So we'll continue to talk about the game. We'll look at some of the other matchups, some of the other big games that are going to be going on like this week. So we're going to take a quick commercial break, but stay locked in, because we're going to keep giving you all the information you need right here on the Bobby Carpenter Show on the Big Play Network. All right, welcome back into the program. And gosh, it is feeling good. It's feeling like Michigan week. It's feeling like Thanksgiving week. It's putting together a lot of my great favorite things, Schlegs: food, family, and football. And so you get a nice, healthy dose of that this week. Goodness, and it's going to be a fun one to enjoy. Got some big rivalry games. Some of them maybe have lost a little bit of their luster, but Oregon State, despite not being able to complete the comeback against Washington, man, they were close. Yeah, they just kind of ran out of gas, but they'll be taking on Oregon in the Civil War up there. It's a Friday night game. Oregon State 8-3, Oregon 10-1 with their only loss being to Washington. And we'll see if Oregon State can play spoiler, if they can pull this off, Schlegs. And what is the last game this will be played with them both in the Pac-12? I've heard they're trying to play this again in the future, which I think is great. Does Oregon State have any gas to pull the upset off?
Bro, isn't there running back Mitchell? I watched that game, man. First off, terrible weather, man. That was awesome for him. I mean, their freaking running back, Oregon State, is a monster, man. I mean, he's a pro-looking dude. He reminds me a lot of like Marshawn Lynch. Like, he runs very, very physical. Here's the deal, though, man. Bo Nix, he's one of the front runners for the Heisman. The guy has 35 touchdowns and 2 picks, and he's only been sacked 5 times. Yeah. That's crazy talk, okay? Like, he's playing, granted, he's older than I was when I was in college, and I should have had a doctorate, probably. But he's playing at an elite level. And, their running back has 10 touchdowns, Oregon. I mean, they run the football. They stop the run. Tosh Leupold is their defensive coordinator. I coached with Tosh when we were at the Jags. He does a great job. His guys freaking fly around on defense. That's going to be, I don't think it's going to be close. I think kind of Oregon State gave Washington everything they had. Oregon being at home, I think they kind of run away with it. It will be a physical contest early, but I just think Oregon has too much gas in the tank for Oregon State. Let's
not forget, Oregon State won this game in Corvallis last year.
Yes, they did.
And they didn't get any favors from the scheduling gods out in the Pac-12, playing Washington and Oregon back-to-back to end the season. So yeah, we'll see how much gas they have in the tank. Another big game that could have some CFP implications. Florida State taking on Florida. Florida State 11-0, obviously. Florida only 5-6, but Jordan Travis goes down against North Alabama this weekend. Florida State starting quarterback who's been very good. I think that could have an impact on this game, Schlegs, and we'll have to see what Florida State can do if Travis is going to be back, and if he's not, how that offense is going to look. They picked it up later in the second quarter and into the second half, but they definitely struggled a little bit early on.
Yeah, Florida was playing Mizzou, got beat on a last-second field goal. Like you said, they're 5-6, about ready not to go bowling, right? This is a huge game for Florida. And just another loss that was close. They've had some of those this year. Can they come back? Florida State's backup quarterback, Tate Rodemaker, he came in just a little bit over 50%, 217 yards, 2 touchdowns. Again, when you have a backup quarterback and you got weapons, you just can't turn the ball over. He did that in that game. Again, it was Northern Alabama, but this is Florida. It should be different, but it's at Florida, right? So now they got to go into a hostile.
I mean, this is Florida's season too. Like, you think about it. I mean, like they're playing, they're 6-6. I mean, when they go into the Gator Bowl, like this is, if they could beat Florida State and play spoiler and they don't have Jordan Travis, like this game, I think could be closer than what people think. I think the line is 11 right now. Yeah. I'm sure that thing will move all around throughout the week too.
Florida's quarterback Mertz is out though. Probably missed the game because he had a collarbone injury in that Mizzou game.
This is great. Again, I mean, the backup quarterback bowl. How great could that be?
Guess what? Just don't turn the ball over. But again, if you're a defense, and if you're Florida and you want to make some noise, you got to go affect Florida State's quarterback. So, that game's there's so many games, man. I mean, you have Texas playing Texas Tech on the road, right? Texas Tech coming, won 3 games. It's hard to win out there, man. That has implications. Yeah. There's so many good Washington State, Washington. There's a lot. Louisville, man. Freaking Jeff Brom has done a phenomenal job. They only got 1 loss. They're gonna play Florida State in the ACC championship game, right? But they got Kentucky this week. There's a lot of good things that can happen this weekend. But guess what, man? It all comes back to the game.
It does. Comes back to the Buckeyes. Anything else, Schlegs, before we get out of here about the game? Tress always said the most physical team always wins.
Yeah, no doubt. And I will say this. Here's the one stat that I'm taking away from this, and I'm gonna hang the freaking Hoyt RX7 ball cap that I got on. Ohio State Silver Bowl defense this year, guys. I'm just telling you, man, they're playing at a level that I don't know if we've seen at Ohio State. And again, it all comes down to this game. They've only given up 3 rushing touchdowns all year, 10 total. So 7 passing, 3 rushing. Man, that's why me as a defender, I can't wait to watch this game because I know that Tom is going to be back. I think our guys are going to be ready. The fits, the things that we talked about earlier in the season, Bob, I think have been corrected. The biggest thing is just do your job. And we're seeing our guys playing zone. Yeah, we can play man. Yeah, we can bring pressure when we want to, not because we have to. It's a very different dynamic. And like you said all the time, Bob, they continue to play every snap. It's the one thing that I appreciate the most. Go ahead, talk about them.
And just line up. And that's my message to those guys. And so I told them against Notre Dame, just keep playing, man. Just keep playing. So oftentimes you give up 7 yards on a run. It's cool. Keep playing. Line up. Go play again. Don't submit. Don't let the snowball start rolling over you and rolling downhill. Just keep fighting for it. The one loss that they had earlier in the season, Lathan Ransom being down, that's going to, I think, be tough. They've been playing without him. But the silver lining is, with Tommy being out the last couple of weeks, we've watched how well Cody Simon has played. And let's face it, Michigan, they're going to get in, 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends, have some wide services. This is going to be more of a running game. I could think you could probably see some 3 linebacker sets. And the fact that Cody has played that well this year with Steele and with Tommy, having those 3 guys be able to go in there and play big, I think that's going to matter a lot, and that should help them.
I'm telling you what, right now, Sonny Styles going to be a difference maker in this game. Man.
Yeah.
He's been playing really physical. And again, Proctor too, man. They got enough dudes. Even with his presence, Bob, if they just do the 2, Sonny Styles right there at 6'4", whatever he is, man.
Oh,
it's been really physical. I mean, dude, he's a dude. He's a linebacker playing safety.
Yeah, you tell Sonny this weekend, man, if you get an extra slab of turkey and 2 extra slabs of ham, you have a ham sandwich with turkey as the bun. That's the type of food that you're trying to choke down this Thanksgiving. All right, we're going to take another quick commercial break. But it's our favorite segment of the week. We're getting to you. It's the Tailgate Talk presented by All Lines Technology, where we answer your questions. That is coming up next on the Bobby Carpenter Show on the Big Play Network. Hey, welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show. And now it's our favorite part of the show. It is Tailgate Talk presented to you by All Lines Technology. All Lines Technology is your trusted IT solutions partner in Columbus, in Cincinnati, in Cleveland, and all places in between. All Lines Technology, well, they attack and dominate Schlegs in a ton of areas. Tell us where.
Yeah, Microsoft services, cybersecurity services. Guess what? Super helpful if you deal with people that work at Schembechler Hall. Just throwing that out there. Infrastructure services, managed services. Go hit them up, all-lines-tech.com. Let's go, Bob.
All right. So here's some of the questions coming to you first and foremost. We've got one coming from Jay Mitchum. Did you guys do anything different away from the field to get mentally ready leading up to the game?
Hey, you know what? I appreciate that question. I went hunting. I would go hunt. That was always on the Monday because that was kind of our day off. But I would hunt, and then I would go back, and then I would train, and then I would watch film with the dudes. That's basically, and then we'd lift all week. It was amazing. Super pumped, super juicy. Yeah, guess what? You gotta look good in the pads, Bob.
Well, you gotta look good in the pads. But I always like lifting throughout the season because at the end of the year,
Absolutely.
you knew this game was here and you knew what this game was about, and it was going to be a physical, strong game. So, so you taper the reps down a little bit, get some weight on there. Oh yeah, you want to make sure you get juiced up and get going because you knew it was going to be a physical game. Yeah. And so I guess like during this week, I mean, maybe I'd watch a little more film, get a little extra treatment, like make sure your legs are ready, get in the cold tub a little bit longer. Like everything you did, you would just do with a little greater attention to detail and a little greater effort and energy placed behind it. You wanted to make sure that you had these guys locked in because we didn't have anybody feeding us, whether it was a runner or pass Schlegs. We had to know by down and distance, by formation, by personnel grouping to try to get that and give ourselves the very best edge that we could. So you just kind of take everything and just ratchet it up one notch. So I'm going to get to the next question here because this is one that I really like. It's from Meg Carty Little. Talking matchups. Our DNs versus their offensive tackles. Will we have more success pressuring in the middle of the O-line or from our edge rushers? And I don't know if Michigan is as good as they've been in the past up front. Like I've been watching their offensive line this year. Like they don't seem to get the same push. And if we can get those guys into 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 7 pluses, I think you might be able to get a little stuff going on the edge. And then I think we can get some linebacker blitzes in the middle to kind of get some things going. They call them the cross dogs, the Mike Will wrap and different things like that to maybe confuse them and to get pressure because they're not used to Schlegs having to be in the game that there's going to be scoring and they can't just go up and run the ball 50 times. And they're going to try to do that, but I think that we may have a little more of an advantage.
Well, I mean, with Michigan's Ladarius Henderson not playing against Maryland, he probably will be back. Miles Hinton left the game versus Maryland. Their tackles. I mean, that's you don't know, right? But they're good. But then, are they going to play in this game? They probably will, but at what capacity? And then you have Jack Sawyer coming off one of his better games. JTT off the edge. You got Tyleek. You got Mike Hall. There's a bunch of guys that are rolling in and out of there.
So Mike Hall didn't play, but I think that he's going to be ready to go for this game. I think all signs are pointing to him playing.
Yep. And I mean, he's quick off the ball. Listen, the one thing that we've seen is when we had those pass rushers, we saw there was one time in the Penn State game where we gave up a little crease and Aller ran for like 20 yards, right? But guess what happened? We stopped that. Those inside games we negated because J.J. McCarthy can't run. You'll see it very similar. We're going to push the pocket up in the front, make him escape, but he's going to escape to an outside edge rusher. That's where you got to be. That's kind of what I see is going to happen in this game.
Absolutely. Push it real good. Schlegs, real good. And final question here. Do you think Michigan's big plays on offense will be as much of a problem for the OSU defense as they were last year? Because remember, like that defense was pretty good coming into that game. And then you said, 5 plays were like 250 yards or 270 yards or whatever it was.
All I know is this: J.J. McCarthy in that game, he was 50% and he threw for 263. And it was like primarily off of big plays. Their runs, Edwards, he had 218 yards of 22 carries, but there was on like two runs of like 75 yards. So he had 150 yards in 2 runs, right? So the big plays what killed us in the second half because remember, we were winning the game at halftime. Yeah. And then we gave up 5 huge explosive plays. We couldn't come back from that. Well, so do I think it's going to be different this year? 100% I do, because of Knowles and the identity of our guys, but also because I think they don't have any help. So I'm excited.
I think so. This team is much better tackling this year, and They're in their spots better, like they're more gap sound, and then they play really hard. And so if you do miss a tackle, if someone does get out of position, you overcome that with effort and pursuit to the football. Keep in mind this, like last 2 years, up 20-17 last season at half. And in 2021, a game that got out of control a little bit, 42-27, only down 14-13 by a point in the second half. It was the third quarter where there were some of those big plays and that things started getting pulled away. So I feel pretty good about where we're at heading into this game. I think we can limit the big plays. We've done it all year.
Yeah, the one thing too, we outscored Minnesota. I'm not saying Minnesota's the end all be all. 24-3 in the second half. We've been a really good second half football team of making adjustments. And I think that's what you're going to see in this one. And to your point, Bob, about the big plays and just the way our guys are playing and what Knowles has done, he's seen like, what do we do at an elite level, man? We keep everything in front of us. When he wants to go blitz and affect the quarterback, you've seen him be able to do those things, but you don't have to go do them just to do them. It's intentional. And the way our guys are playing zone, like Hancock the other day on that pick, like our guys are reading, like they understand the defense and the fits. When we try to do too much and like come down when a safety comes down wrong, or we don't necessarily, come in and set the edge on certain things, that's when a 15-yard play will happen. Well, in the past, that was a 50-yard play. That's the difference this year in our defense.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps up Tailgate Talk, presented to you by All Lines Technology. All Lines Technology, your trusted IT solutions partner, Columbus, Cincinnati, Cleveland, and everywhere in between. Final segment of the show coming up. We'll wrap it up and give you our final thoughts on where we think this game is going. It's the Bobby Carpenter Show on the Big Play Network. All right, final segment of the program here, and what is going to be a phenomenal rivalry week game with Ohio State taking on Michigan. Schlegs and I have talked a lot about it. There's one other thing, Schlegs, that I want to get into. Talking about the Silver Bullets defense, and I had these in the back. Fick gave me these a couple of years ago. I want to dig them out of my desk. They used to give these out. When you go make.
Oh yeah, I remember these.
The Silver Bullets defense. They have a hollowed out, little hollowed out 223 round right here. See a little keychain. You hang this thing on a necklace or whatever. Like you take great pride in those and being a part of this defense and what it is. And like, there's no greater time to earn those and earn your stripes than in the Michigan game. Because Earl Bruce would say it, great players play great against Michigan. There's no other way around it. That's why I wore the shirt. Pulled out the old homage shirt for us, Schlegs. Legends never die. When you play well in that game, you're remembered forever.
Yep. And I mean, I don't take it very lightly, the fact that I was blessed to be at Ohio State. I transferred from the Air Force Academy. I am not from the state of Ohio, but I am a Buckeye. And let me tell you something, man. I got 5 gold pants. I played on the Silver Bullet defense with some of my best friends. And it's special. And what do we remember? Like, I remember the losses, but these 2 games in 04 and 05, Bob, with you and the boys are the ones that I remember the most of all of our wins, because they're the ones that matter the most. And that's what this game does, man. And guess what, everybody? We're 20 years removed almost from that time. And that's still the memory that we have, celebrating after the games with our teammates 20 years later. It's the best.
I remember the celebrations after the games, plays in the wins, but I could probably diagram almost that entire 2003 game and lay that thing out, because I remember watching it with Mark D'Antonio over and over again in 2003. That's the worst part about you. You remember the losses more than the wins. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of the Bobby Carpenter Show. Go Bucks, beat the blue, right here on the Big Play Network.